Hello, I'm David Thorold. I'm the curator at Verulamium Museum, and I'm going to talk you through a few more objects in our collection. We have 49 mosaics that we know of that have been excavated in Verulamium Park. They were laid either in the 2nd century or the late 3rd or early 4th century, and most of them seem to be 2nd century in date, and certainly most of the finest and most complicated ones date from that time. One of the mosaics that I want to talk about today is the one that sort of forms the centrepiece of our displays. It's the shell mosaic. It's an unusual one in that it's a semicircular design. Most mosaics tend to be rectangular, probably because they're broadly going into rectangular rooms, whereas the shell mosaic is actually designed to fit into a semicircular room. The design that it features is a scallop shell, and that's quite common on the occasions that you find semicircular floors. Scallop shells often tend to be the featured design element because they suit the shape of the floor, but they're also images of rebirth and fertility, so that may play into why the design is being featured as well. What's also notable about the shell mosaic design is that it has a black and white wave pattern that runs around the edge of the shell itself, and that is one of these common motifs that we see from mosaics at Verulamium, and it does turn up at Colchester as well. If you look to the bottom right hand corner of the shell design, you can see that one of the black waves hasn't been infilled black, it's been left as a white interior, and that is clearly a feature that's been done on purpose, although quite why we don't know, but it's been left like that for some reason. And the shell mosaic itself formed the floor of a room that was on the perimeter of a house, and as we said, the room would have been semicircular, so if it had windows on the outside, that curved outer wall would have let light come into the room as the sun moved around the sky throughout the day. The second mosaic I want to mention is the lion and stag mosaic. This is another 2nd century design. It's probably a simpler one in that it's a rectangular design. It has a central panel that has the main feature within it, and that is set within a larger panel with 4 semicircular designs facing in towards it. The interlocking pattern that forms these semicircles and the frames, which is known as guilloche, is a style that is common to the Verulamium mosaics, and we see them in the designs from Colchester as well. In the 4 corners of the outer frame are canthori. These are basically 2-handled drinking cups. And in the central panel itself we have a lion holding the head of a stag in its mouth. It's an interesting feature. You don't see many hunting scenes, and we actually have 2 examples from Verulamium, of which this is the best preserved and is one that is on display to the public. But it hasn't been entirely laid out to make the feature really clear. In the head in particular of the lion, there's a bit too much going on, there's too many colours and detail, and it's a little bit difficult to make it out. So although it's a lion holding the head of a stag, it can sort of look like a stag wearing a lion skin on its back. A slightly bigger mistake in the laying of this design is that the mosaicist has basically started the design of the lion too far over into the panel. The nose of the animal needs to be a bit closer to the edge of the panel, and because they haven't done that, once they've worked from left to right across the laying of this feature, you can see that they've actually missed the tail off. They've had to cut the tail off, and unlike the shell mosaic where we have a black wave that's been purposefully left sort of hollow with a little bit of white infill, this is a genuine mistake in the design. It's not a big one, but it's the sort of risk that's common when you're laying mosaics and having to sort of plan it out as you go. If you get something wrong, you can't easily rub it out and start again. So I guess the question is, did the owner get a discount on this design?